So I don't normally review SUVs because frankly I just find them really boring and uninteresting. They're just normal road cars raised a bit off the ground with a bunch of safety features and practical features, and that's about it. There's no real off-road capability, there's no real driving dynamics despite what manufacturers might claim. And this one is an SUV. It is practical, it is raised off the ground, it looks like any other Kona pretty much that you'd find driving around. But there's something a little bit different about it, and that's why I'm standing in front of it. Because this vehicle is kind of unique. It is actually not just a fast SUV, because there's plenty of them around, although not at this price point. It's actually a motorsports SUV. And it's actually something you can take to a racetrack and drive hard, yet it retains its SUV practicality and day-to-day livability. And that's pretty much unique at this price point. So what makes the Kona actually a motorsports vehicle as opposed to just yet another SUV with some go faster stripes? Well, there's a bunch of things, and I've got a tech explainer. We're going into them in more detail, but we'll take a quick run around the vehicle. Starting with the brakes. Now, the calipers here are painted pretty red, and that's not unusual, but they're actually stronger and larger calipers than usual, and the brake pads themselves are designed for track/street use. And then we've got this here. If I can actually pass my mobile phone through there like that, because that's an air duct which routes air past the tyre and helps suck hot air away from it and allowing the brakes to be cooling. And that's not something you see on many sports cars, let alone an SUV. Now, a huge problem with any front-wheel drive vehicle like this when you take it onto the track is the inside wheels spinning up and losing traction and no drive or torque really going to the outside wheel. So Hyundai have fixed that. They have got an electronic limited slip diff in the front of this which works off clutch packs, and that basically prevents that inside wheel spinning up so that the front wheels are always pulling the vehicle around the corner. And again, that is just not something you would normally see even on some front drive sports cars. It's a really sophisticated bit of technology, and to see it in an SUV, well, that's really unusual. So this is where you're going to find the eLSD working for you. It's a right-hand bend, so there's less grip on the right-hand side or inside wheel. Accelerating out as I unwind and lock, that's when you're going to find that inside wheel spinning, and it just doesn't, despite the fact you're putting down more than 200 kilowatts worth of power through the front wheels. So that's why the eLSD is a good thing. Kona also has forged wheels, and what that means is that for a given size, those wheels are stronger and lighter than the normal size of wheels, type of wheels, which is a cast wheel. And it's important to reduce the weight of the wheels because they rotate, and the more heavier a wheel is, the more energy needed to rotate that wheel, so the slower the car goes. And also there's something called unsprung mass as well, which is really important to minimize, and that's what forged wheels help you reduce. So the drive modes are controlled by this button. You simply turn it from side to side, and that gives you Eco, Normal and Sport. Press it and then that gives you some of the off-road traction modes as well. Now if you want to go for the really exciting mode, then what you have to do is press the N button, which is here, and then that will put you into N mode, and that changes a lot of that stuff over to the more sporty settings. Now at that point there's really only two things extra you've got to do to drive on track. One is, if you want to, you can switch the stability control completely off by pressing this button down all the way like so. That takes the stability control from sport mode to completely off. And then if you want, you can actually also use the paddle shift as well, which are here to the left, sorry, to the right and to the left, to manually control the gears, although the car does a pretty good job of that by itself. If we take a look at the N mode settings, then we can get an idea of some of the changes from the standard Kona to make it a Kona N. So I'm going to press this button over here, and we can go over, and then there's our custom N mode settings, and the N mode is the track setup for the Kona. So you've got different engine modes, and that's basically the responsiveness of the engine. The steering can change. It's got electronic power steering, so you can change that whether it's got a very light feel or a heavier feel. But that's not really that critical. What is important is the suspension, because sometimes you want a very stiff suspension and that reduces body roll. Other times you want a slightly more flexible suspension, certainly when you're driving around town or if it's a bumpy racetrack, and there's 3 different suspension settings there. The transmission has got different settings as to how quickly it will change up or change down and how long it will hold a gear, again, whether it's going to be sporty or not. That ELSD I was talking about, there's 2 settings there, and that really does help pull you out of a corner. That's a really important part of the vehicle. And then the stability control system is pretty impressive as well. You can actually change it from a normal mode, which keeps you nice and safe on the road, to a sport mode, allows a little bit of slip, so you can go fairly fast with it. That's probably a good racetrack mode for novices. But unusually, you can completely switch it off, and that's really impressive for pretty much any sports car these days. But for front-wheel drive SUV, that's pretty rare. And then this has no effect on speed, but you can just change the exhaust sound as well. So there's a bunch of things on this car to make it a true motorsports vehicle you can take to the track. But why would you want an SUV and take that to the track as opposed to just something like the i30N, which is a standard hatch or sedan? Well, there's a pretty good reason why not. And that reason is day-to-day practicality. What if you're just going out for a walk, or you need to deal with a driveway or something like that? Your average sort of road car based sports car often has problems with that because they're really low. But this vehicle has greater clearance and can much more easily deal with this sort of challenge. So out onto the track, and the first thing you notice is that you're sitting a little bit higher than usual, even for a hot hatch, let alone a more dedicated sports car, and that means that you've got better visibility around and over the track, which is a good thing. Now the seat itself could be a little bit more supportive laterally, considering the G-forces the car is capable of generating. You also immediately notice that the vehicle is pretty quick in a straight line. You've got over 200 kilowatts of power there, and yes, it does weigh 1500 kilos, but it does have an 8-speed auto, shifts quickly, and it is pretty quick in a straight line. The sound is good as well. I do like the bimodal exhaust, which manages to just add an extra little bit of ambience and interest to things. The steering is good, it's electric, it's certainly direct, it's only one turn from lock to lock, so if you do find an oversteer moment, you can certainly deal with that. The ELSD here is really helping pull the vehicle out of corners. That's a huge advantage for the vehicle, and it really means you put the power down, it really doesn't understeer or push wide, and that's just fantastic. The only way you'll get it to do that is in the wet, and then you can spin both front wheels and it will go wide, but then, you know, just being silly if you're doing that. Now the brakes feel good as well. Coming up to this corner here, you can smash them and you've actually got some confidence they're going to work and not fade, thanks to all that good engineering there. Again, this corner here, that's one where you often can push a little bit wide, you really don't want to. That ELSD just really helps bring you out here, and it's nice to be able to just hammer down the straight and just feel the gears changing for you. Now overall, the Kona N drives similar to the i30N, the road car N vehicle, but it's not quite as precise or as accurate, which you'd expect given it's heavier and it's taller. But that doesn't really detract from the fun, and in fact there's quite a lot of fun to be had in the vehicle, and I don't mind a little bit of roly-poliness at all. Now what I would definitely say is that the suspension is great for track work, but I'd actually want it to be a bit softer, and if that means giving up half a second around a track like this, then so be it. And if the vehicle has a bit more body roll I don't really see that as taking away from the fun factor. You can see here it's not really a problem. And also then you can see I'm using some of the curbs here. You'd just have a slightly easier time with the curbs. So on tracks where you do need to ride curbs a bit, the softer suspension would help a bit with that, and it'd certainly be better around town. So to summarise, the Kona N is quick, it's capable on track, it's a lot of fun, and it drives like a good hot hatch. And in fact, if you own one and get the most out of it, you will definitely be embarrassing cars. And personally, I just love the idea of an SUV, and a Hyundai SUV at that, just eating some other vehicles for breakfast. That would be a lot of fun. The Kona can also take 5 people, and because it's an SUV, it's actually pretty easy to get into. You don't need to squat down like a sports car or jump up into a four-wheel drive. It's not super spacious here, but I'm 6 feet and there is enough room for me, and the seat is pushed a little bit back, so I'm reasonably comfortable. Seating position is very important for any sporting vehicle, and the Kona's got a very adjustable seat, and the steering wheel is also tilt reach adjustable. The only criticism is that the seat needs to be a bit more supportive if you're going to take the vehicle to a track. Now, I do like my cars to be practical, and one practicality aspect is what happens if you get a spare tyre. Well, in the case of the Kona, we actually do have a space saver spare, which is better than nothing, yeah, I'd prefer a full size, but I'd rather have this and the jacking equipment than just some goo. Before I review a car, I always try and visualise who might buy it, who needs that car in their life, and for some cars I can't actually think of who would buy the car, but I can for the Kona N. Now, a lot of us do a lot of errand driving. We take kids here, we go to work, we run to the shops, etc, etc. That's a lot of our lives, and that sort of errand driving should be more fun, and it will be more fun in a car like this because it's quick, it's responsive, and it's just kind of fun to be in compared to a normal Kona. But what if you also want to take it to the track and have fun on a racetrack? Well, you can, because it's designed for that. So you've got a fun car for around town, you've got a racetrack, but then it's not so compromised that you can't drive over a bit of dirt or around a curb, as I just demonstrated. So for me, it's kind of a really good all-rounder. It's an around town car, it's a track car, and it's practical daily driving. You could take it down a dirt road. And for me, that's why you'd want to buy this car. Now, it's not as sharp as the i30N on track, nor is it quite as quick, but it's good enough. You can have a lot of fun with it. And it's not as practical as, let's say, I don't know, a four-wheel drive to going off-roads. But, you know, I think it actually has a really good compromise that will appeal to a lot of people. And I just love the fact it's an SUV that can embarrass quite a few hot hatches on a racetrack. It's just fantastic. So I hope you found this video useful. Any questions, drop them in the comments, and thanks for watching.